goal just makes me go, really? Yawn. Sorry, that's it.
I totally disagree, I'm afraid.
I know you do. I know, but that's why we're doing this podcast, because we're yin and yang. You are force and I am power. That's the difference, and that's okay. That's what's going to come out of this all the time. As I said to you in an email the other day, I'm a little bit country, you're a little bit rock and roll. We're good. It's creative tension. I'm glad you like goals, and I'm glad that I prefer intentions. It just yawn. Judith Morgan thinks goals are yawn worthy.
Am I going to get a word in edgeways about my opinions on goals?
Well, it wasn't my word of the week, but now that I've finished, you may address the topic, yes.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. How's your week been, Judith?
Oh, well, pretty jolly, Nicola, actually. It's sort of been the end of term. There's been a great flurry of my clients. In my babies group, which is called Small Business Big Magic, they pay a monthly subscription. They're allowed to turn up or as little or as often as they like. And they've been a bit slack. But when I announced them that on Wednesday morning at 800, which is, oh dark ridiculous, would be the last call for this term, there was a massive turnout. And so they put me through their paces. There are a lot of people there. That's a lot of questions to answer. And we have to move on lickety-split. We did overrun slightly. But what it made me realise was, particularly at this time of year, actually, but the value of community. They were all there, and the energy they created by all being there meant it was upbeat and fast, and that in turn has caused a flurry of activity on the Facebook group, and everybody's excited, and that helps. We were talking last week about accountability, but actually community, where you're all doing it together, is very encouraging, and I get community where I didn't get accountability, perhaps.
Yeah, that's it. And you also did something during the year with John, didn't you, where there was a huge sense of community?
Yes, I think that's less community, more about all going through something together. A bit like the NCT I always think of, you're all having a baby and you're all doing it together, So there's, especially if it's your first time, there's value in doing it together.
That's the challenge thing, isn't it? The challenge model. Yeah, absolutely. I always start out challenges really well, but then get completely lose the plot halfway through.
Well, I think they can be quite overwhelming. A lot of people find them overwhelming. In fact, I would try and find an NLP reframe for the word challenge, because actually it's a bit like boot camp. It's like, oh really? Could there be something more gentle and positive?
Oh, see, I
boot
like
camp
challenge.
Do you? Oh, it just sounds so early morning Spartan and running around the common with the military. It just sounds grim.
Well, you probably remember that from your childhood days.
I just don't go to boot camp. It's quite brutal. It's quite a male energy. It's a bit like video. Do you want to watch video? No. Do you want to go to a boot camp? No.
I think that's definitely whether someone is more orientated towards female energy or male energy, because I was, as I know, I have I have the poker game round every Monday night. In fact, we're having a Christmas break at the moment. I'll be welcoming them back with open arms, because that's a very male energy. And I'm just about to tell you, but part of my day yesterday was we were in the pub, and there was it must have been about 20 females, and they were, I just thought, oh my God, I can't think of anything worse than going on a girls' night out. I absolutely love it.
I wouldn't want to go on a girls' night out. I went to my last hen night in about 80 something. If somebody said, "Do you want to go on a hen night now?" I'd go, "No."
You just say it blunt like that.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd rather die. Thanks.
No, thanks. Yeah. Anything else about your week this week? Your job?
Yes, end of term related stuff as well, which is because of the short month. All of my clients have to squeeze themselves in before the 18th, which is when I decided would be my end of term, and that meant that in that week I worked 3 out of 4 evenings, so Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday until quite late, so very long days. And what that's made me realise is, well, it's just reminded me to have respect for people like, the Amazon man, the postman, the grocery delivery boy, the people who are battling. I mean, I sat at home to do my 3 late evenings, but they're battling, holiday traffic, freezing cold, everybody's stress levels, just a respect for people who are trying really hard to meet everybody's expectations by the 25th.
Yes, I was watching something on as I was getting dressed yesterday, and they were talking about, what do you do if your presents don't arrive on time? And some of the panel were getting, it was the right stuff. I like the right stuff in the morning, and they were saying, the panel were getting quite indignant that people shouldn't offer to sell you things if they can't guarantee to get you things in time. But there are just so many variables, aren't they?
There are, and I think back to another thing that we liked the other day, people generally, I think, do their utmost. I think people have a good sense of wanting to deliver what can reasonably be done by a deadline. No, you're superhuman, not all the time. That's just exhausting above and beyond. But I think that everybody tries very hard to meet quite a lot of unrealistic expectations in the lead up, particularly to Christmas, actually.
Yeah, and never take it out on the bloke who turns up at your door, because he's just the end of a very long chain, and it's not his fault. He's doing the best in the freezing cold and the rain, and it's Christmas too. So be nice to them, the delivery people. We like them a lot.
We do. And how's your week been, Nicola?
Oh, I've had a marvellous week. I can't tell you how marvellous my week is. It's just been spine-tinglingly, excitingly good on every level. And
even though you lost a client in the car park, didn't you?
Oh, please, I've got to tell you about that. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It was worse than that. It's been the final week of Andy Shaw's special launch for his bug-free mind books. He puts them on sale once a year and does special prices on them, and we all pitch in, and lots of joint venture partners getting involved. And I told you last week about the very funny daily videos they put on their joint venture blog, and this week was no exception. And I've the Facebook marketing and remarketing has excelled itself. I'm at number 10 in the leaderboard now, which is, when you think they've got 30 joint venture partners, all with massive mailing lists, all mailing, the very simple act of putting a remarketing pixel on the site for people who opt in but don't buy has generated as much as the top joint venture partners in sales. So if you guys don't have, listening here, do not have a remarketing pixel on your own website, and you're not running a very affordable, I mean, it's costing, not very much money to do this campaign. And I've run remarketing campaigns for as little as £5 a day, which, when you think about it, that's, if you sell one of your things, normally that will cover it. It's just an astonishing way to hoover up sales that you would never have made. So I'm thoroughly delighted to be, when they do their top 20 rundown, it's like, where am I this week? I'm so excited.
Well, next year you'll have to tell us what a remarketing pixel is. Even I have no idea what that is.
And even less interest, I suspect.
No. I'm mildly interested, but I do think it would be worth you, when we come to Challenge of the Week, you could educate us about what is a remarketing pixel. Not now, Nicola, because I know I haven't got the energy for it today, but next year we need to hear more about them.
Yeah, and then on Wednesday I did my Best Year Yet webinar, which after a day of podcast interviews, client calls, and all sorts of things, I actually was feeling a little bit, why on earth have I scheduled this? But interestingly, I pushed the boat. I really did a mini launch on it, and I got nearly 100 people. Well, 150 people signed up, which I find amazing, because I don't normally get anything like that numbers normally. And nearly 100 people turned up. And what's even more exciting is 99% of them stayed to the very end. And so I must have been doing something right. And all I was really doing was sharing, the things that have helped me over the last 4 years, the things that really made a difference for me. And I got so many nice emails afterwards just saying what a great webinar it was. When you do these things, you never know if you're being any good or not, or you don't know if what you're sharing is having an impact or helping people. You can only do the best you can and be absolutely authentic. And I just got so many nice emails. I actually came off the call afterward. I was actually nearly in tears with the joy of it all. And who can ask more than that from their work, really?
Well, I agree.
In fact, I'm feeling quite tearful just talking about it.
Yes, I could tell you were on the brink of a blub there.
You can always tell, can't you? There's that marvellous video on YouTube where I nearly blubbed several times and you're quietly handing me tissues from the front. I'm on the stage and you come and walk over and just give me tissues. It's so sweet. And then, of course, the next day, straight after that, I mean, really, I like to pack it in this week. I had my VIP day with my client who he asked for, 2 months intensive coaching. So we settled on a call a week. And then he threw in a curveball at the end and he said, I'd love to come down for the day. Those words normally strike terror into my heart. But I said, oh, go on then. He said, I'll buy you dinner at your favourite restaurant. And we were going to do it in Brighton first, but then I couldn't find anywhere to have the meeting as such, because obviously every hotel in Brighton is jammed with holiday makers. So he came down to Brighton, stayed overnight, and then he came over to Shoreham in the morning. And we had to be in this meeting room at a certain time because he had a presentation. So there was a little bit of time constraint around it, but not much. So I said, let's meet in my local for a cup of coffee and we'll just sort of do a bit of, chit chat, and then we'll move on to this place because they couldn't get us in before 1 o'clock or 12:45, and his presentation was at 1 o'clock. So I said, let's do some of the preliminaries in the pub, then we'll move to the meeting room. You can do your presentation, then we'll spend the rest of the day in the meeting room, and then we'll go for dinner. And he said, it sounds like a great idea. So he got a taxi over from Brighton, and I got myself to my local, where my daughter works. So it's all very convivial, and it's a nice place. It's not like a pub, it's a gastro pub. So I was sitting there with a nice cappuccino. Anyway, he didn't show. Well, I didn't put any makeup on. So I thought I want to pop home and put some makeup on because he had emailed me to say he didn't sleep very well. So I thought perhaps he fell back asleep again or something. I wasn't upset about it. I wasn't worried about it. I just thought it'll happen. And I got home and there's this email saying, I don't know why I didn't see it when I was in the pub because I was checking my emails. He said, I'm in Suter's Yard. And I said, why is he in there then? Because he's supposed to be in the Crown and Anchor. And what happened was he'd got out of the taxi. Some local yokel he'd asked had said, he said, where's the Crown and Anchor? And they said there. And he just walked in without looking at the sign above the door. So he was sitting in my second favourite pub for about an hour and a half, while I was sitting in my favourite pub for an hour and a half, both wondering where each other was. Then I walked down to the Suter's Yard. He, in the meantime, had left the Crown and Anchor. And then I saw him walking along the road. That's the good thing about doing it all in a small area. So we then went along and did his presentation, and we had the most marvellous afternoon going through all his different businesses, rationalising them, putting them all into a coherent plan for him going forward over the next 3 years. We then went back to Suter's Yard and had a glass of wine, and then we went for dinner, and it was just the most enjoyable day. He's a really intelligent man. He's a really action-oriented property investor, Judith, man after our own heart. But he sold all his before the crash. He just kept 4 or 5 to keep him going. And really clever man, really intelligent, really quick-witted, funny, authentic, just a joy. The whole day was a joy after that rather shaky start, but we just had such a good laugh about that, it didn't really matter. So that was just a lovely, lovely day, and I want to do more of them.
Yeah, sounds gorgeous.
What's fueled your fire this week then?
You know that we've been subscribed since God was a lad to Mike Dooley's daily email from the universe called Tut.
Yes.
I found a new one, which I like as much. It's slightly different in flavour. It's called The Daily Flame, and it comes from Your Inner Pilot Light. And one of the ones this week I liked so much I put it on my blog. You've probably read it, but if it's okay with you, I'm going to read it to our listeners. Is that all right?
Okay.
If you can't hear my whispers, you haven't found your calling, and you're not noticing the signs from the universe that guide your path. Give yourself a gift and take a break from your regular life. When you're caught up in the same everyday routine, stuck in a rut and running on empty, it's easy to be comfortably numb, so you can't hear me even when I yell. But when you change your environment, take yourself out of your comfort zone and shake things up, there's room for serendipity, My voice may grow louder, and the way may become more clear. How about renting a home in that place you love all by yourself? How about a healing retreat in a gorgeous place, or a meditation workshop, or an art class far from home? What about a writing retreat, or a week of camping, or a month of renting a villa in Tuscany while learning to cook? Get crazy, dream big, take risks, do something wild. You might be surprised how it changes your life.
I've secretly become addicted to the same thing since seeing it on the blog.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? And actually, it's not that brilliant every day.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really nice sort of end of year thing. Do something different for a change. You get crazy, dream big, take risks. Do something wild. I mean, frankly, as if you and I need another incitement to do something wild. But I just think it's lovely. It is the same sort of inspiration as Tut gives us, but it's got a different flavour to it. I don't know whether obviously his is written by a man and this by a woman. Perhaps I don't know who's behind this. You can follow these. You don't need to subscribe to them. She's got a Your Inner Pilot does have a Facebook page. I like it. I love it, actually.
Yeah. I love that one because there's things that speak to everyone in there. I've always wanted to take a villa in Tuscany for a month and learn to cook.
Well, and we certainly wouldn't want to go camping, either of us. But some of my clients do. Do you know what I mean? It horses for courses there. But I think he's saying get out of your comfort zone. She's saying whoever it is, shake things up. You know, that message certainly spoke to me this week.
It's interesting because I haven't been planning to take any time off over Christmas and New Year. In fact, I've been telling people that I'm not. But I obviously am going away towards the end of January, so I tend to just carry on as normal. But I think having listened to you talking about take some time off and listening to that, I think as I was listening to you reading that, I've just decided to actually do something different over the next 2 weeks. And while I'm going to shut everything down for 2 weeks, and I am going to make a concerted effort and do things like go to the pictures in the daytime, which I never normally do in working hours.
It's deeply depraved and lovely. I love going to the pictures in the daytime.
Funny, isn't it, when you say nowadays our idea of doing something wild is going to the pictures. I'm sure there's a bit more spark in me left, but that does sound pretty naughty to me, I've got to say.
And what about you, Nicola? What's fueled your fire this week?
It's a bit of software, Judith, of course it is.
Tell me.
It's LeadPages. I've probably mentioned them in passing before, but when I interviewed James Schramko for the Christmas episode, we both had a little rhapsody about LeadPages because it's the most gorgeous business model on the planet. It's a guy called Clay Collins who comes across as a really nice bloke. They launched and they swiftly became can't live without tool. You know when one shopping cart first started and everyone, this does everything. Well, LeadPages does everything. It just enables ordinary people to make beautiful looking pages that convert like crazy. There's sales pages, there's 404 pages, there's thank you pages. There's webinar opt-in pages, there's webinar replay pages, there's refer a friend pages that redirect people back to your original page. Check it out at ownitthepodcast.com/LeadPages. Go and have a look. And I was going through it with Suzanne Jorgensen this week. She could not believe how fast and quick it was to set up a great looking page, integrate it with your website and set up a thank you page and just do everything. You know, as a graphically design challenged person that I am, even though I went to art college, it takes away all the grief of trying to make something look good. It's as good in its way, if not better than WordPress, you know, and themes and things like that. That's another bit of kit that really we couldn't live without now. The thing about LeadPages is they encourage people, big name marketers, to submit their best converting lead pages as a template. So it's constantly refreshing new free templates that have been created by the likes of, you know, Frank Kern and Jeff Walker and Justin Brooke. So you're getting to use templates that people of very vast experience and deep pockets have split tested to the nth degree, and they actually allow in LeadPages you to sort the templates by the best converting ones. So even if you haven't got a clue about which one you should use, you can just click this button and it will tell you, oh, that one converts the best at the moment. And they're constantly anonymously tracking the performance of the templates, because when you set up a new template for your own business, they ask you to say, are you happy for us to track this anonymously? Yes. Which industry are you in? Okay, I'm in business and consulting. So they track, so they're constantly adjusting that thing where they say, which is the best converting based on actual results that people across a wide range of businesses are getting, which I find astonishing. It's such a fully formed business. It's affordable. It's $67 a month for the split testing level, and it just completely takes away all the grind. You don't have to. You can actually do a whole product launch, and John Lee Dumas did, using just LeadPages, not going anywhere near a website, not needing, just got a domain name, and he pointed it at the first lead page, and then his whole launch worked on LeadPages. And I can't think of a business model where you're less likely to cancel your subscription. So it's sticky to the max for the old recurring income. I think.
And what I like about that is it encourages, our worldview is somewhat different, but the idea of people sharing their sale pages is extremely abundant.
It is, and they do it purely for the kudos of being featured on the LeadPages marketplace, and that's just a lovely business model. It's deeply impressive, and they work constantly to make it better. Their customer service is awesome. I got stuck with one thing, and I sent my question into their LeadPages support, and by the next day I had a personal video that one of the support team had made for me. They'd actually gone into my account, created a test page that mimicked the problem, and then showed me how to solve it on a little video. You don't get better customer support than that. What's your client challenge of the week then, Judith? I always look forward to these because I never know what they're going to be in advance.
Okay. So this week's is, how much should I invest in myself and in my business?
Oh.
And this was, I don't mean me, I mean one. This was prompted by a client who I spoke to yesterday, who lives in a particularly smart and expensive and posh part of the UK, and is therefore herself smart and posh and expensive, and doesn't hesitate to invest in herself. But her website designer had introduced her to somebody who was going to make 2 videos for her website. One, a sting, if you know what a sting is, which is a sort of 30-second piece that she hoped might go viral. And the second one was an illustration of her doing her thing. The quote for this had been revised upwards from quite a shocking sum of money to £3,000. So we had a debate about whether top quality video on your website was worth £3,000. And what I would like you to guess was whether she persuaded me or I her by the end of the call that the answer to that was yes or no.
I think the simple answer is, that I would go with, is it more likely to make you that amount of money back in the next year?
Good question.
Or not?
Good question. We both went for it in the end, because neither of us like anything cheap. It's back to that recurring theme. She is also posh and smart. This filmmaker is at the top of her game. The filmmaker had also quoted the worst case scenario, i.e. it couldn't possibly be more than that and it might be less. And the filmmaker had also said, if this price point is a struggle for you, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Yeah, we liked it. We went for it. But actually the bigger debate here is, how much should I invest in myself and in my business? And you said, I think, last week that, or maybe the week before, that you were, there were things that you were happy to pay for and invest in, and other things that you wouldn't be. And this woman told me she would have to take money out of savings to do it, but she had money in savings. And it wasn't a question of her persuading me or me persuading her. We debated the pros and cons of it, and we went for it in the end. How do you help clients make decisions about what to spend money on, what's worth spending money on?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because we've just been talking about LeadPages, and that's $67 a month, and people are very reluctant to do it. They're very reluctant to spend $18 a month on Aweber. They'd rather go for MailChimp. But I've got to the point now where I think if someone is not willing to invest under $100 a month in setting up their business properly, I'm not interested in working with them, because it is about an investment rather than an expense. And I think that's where the difference is. Buying my new kettle is an expense. It's not going to earn me any money. So that's definitely how I gauge things now, because...
Yeah, and that's Rich Dad's definition, if you remember. Does it put money in your pocket or take money out of it?
And when you think that most big businesses don't even think about getting a return on investment in the first year on most things, they look on it in the first 3 years. And here we are talking about a video that is, I mean, what's her price point? Is she selling an ebook, or is she selling a top-end product?
Somewhere in between.
Okay, so what would a new customer be worth to her over the first year?
I don't know the answer to that question.
The question's got to be, is that video going to get her a new client? And if so, over the first year, is it going to return? Is it going to pay for it?
I think it could help achieve sales in year one that would be worth more combined than the cost, yes.
Well, it's no brainer then, isn't it? If you know,
we don't know. That's the point. No guarantees. When she said, first of all, these will go on my website, I thought, well, that's a limited value. You've got to get people to your website, first of all. But then the sting, they think they'll be able to get to go viral. So then that in itself would bring people to the website.
And just to let you know, she's not being ripped off. If the video...
No, I know that.
Very fair
yes.
price. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We knew that. And she lives in a part of the world there'll be travel involved and it's not, of course, just the one filmmaker, it's the assistant and all the editing and and quality in that field tells, I think. Not to say that we can't go quite a long way with making our own funny little videos at home on our webcam, but this is in another league. And when I see my clients, I've got another client who's got a brother who's a professional video person. Top-notch quality makes a lot of difference on video.
Yes, it does. And yes, there is still a place. I mean, Chris's ironing board saga rumbles on with the videos now of him creeping up on cupboards and everything. And there is definitely a place for that. But I remember we used to do workshops, and I used to record them. Do you remember I used to sit there with the webcam on a tripod, and I used to follow him around the room and all that sort of stuff?
Yes.
And then we graduated to getting Sarah Starr to come to our events and film them so much more professionally, and it was so worth it. And it definitely, I think there's a place for fun. God, iPads and iPhones now, you can make top quality recordings, but they'll never be as good as a proper team and proper lighting's the thing that makes it.
And you know why? It is lighting, but it's also different angles. We've only got one angle if we're holding the iPad, whereas if she's got a team, they'll have cameras from 3 different angles.
I need a team to capture my best side at all times.
Well, me too. I that's probably why I don't like video. I don't want to watch myself on it.
No, hard to find my best side nowadays. A word from our sponsors. This week's episode was sponsored by Audio Jungle. To get some immediate atmosphere for your website or your recordings, go to ownitthepodcast.com/Audio Jungle. What's your word of the week then?
Goal.
Goal?
Yawn, Nicola. Goal. Yawn. I find the word goal yawn making. I'm so over goals, it's not true. For me, Wayne Dyer, one of my favourite gurus, always recommends a book. I'm not sure who it's by. It's called Force versus Power. It might even be called Power versus Force. Goals are all about force for me, whereas intentions are about power. So again, it goes back to the topic we had a couple of weeks ago about accountability. Are you excited or what? Don't go through the motions with goals. Set intentions that will pull you forward. I think goal is an utterly tedious, quite limiting coaching 101 type of thing. If one more person brings out the wheel of life, I might be responsible for my actions. We've got to move beyond that. We've got to move with the times. We've got to see what works. Yes, I think goals can work for some people. Yes, I've read the article about the people that, graduating for Harvard that wrote it down and lost it, achieved more than other people. But the word goal just makes me go, really? Yawn. Sorry, that's it.
I totally disagree, I'm afraid.
Why we're doing this podcast, because we're yin and yang. You are force and I am power. That's the difference, and that's okay. That's what's going to come out of this all the time. As I said to you in an email the other day, I'm a little bit country, you're a little bit rock and roll. We're good. It's creative tension. I'm glad you like goals, and I'm glad that I prefer intentions. It just yawn. Judith Morgan thinks goals are yawn worthy.
Am I going to get a word in edgeways about my opinions on goals?
Well, it wasn't my word of the week, but now that I've finished, you may address the topic, yes.
Thank you so much. I was the woman who never set goals because I didn't want to find them again in a drawer and be disappointed with myself. So that was the first 40 years of my life, not setting goals. As soon as I started setting goals, even though they were probably more like intentions because I didn't want to get too specific, again, in case I disappointed myself, my life started changing dramatically, as you know, because you've been with friends of mine for much of that time. I spent the whole day yesterday with my client setting goals. I use a thing called the Vision Traction Organizer, which comes from a major book that I've read this year called Traction. I highly recommend it to anyone. It's a good read. There's lots of case studies in it, so it's very interesting. But what it does is it gets you to put, as I said to him yesterday, the sky's the limit and we've got no idea. So let's just set some, put a stake in the sand. And what it gets you to do is set a 10-year goal and then a 3-year goal and then a 1-year goal and then 90-day goals. What I did at the beginning of the day, just backtrack a little bit, what I do at the beginning of the day these days is get a client to set a goal, just pluck it out of the air if they haven't got any idea, and we put it on the board and leave it there for the rest of the day. What invariably happens by the time we come to do the Vision Traction Organizer bit is that goal has got bigger. So, the whole day works up to the point of, okay, let's set a goal now to leave here with. And then I bring them back down to earth again by backtracking them from that goal into concrete actions to do in the next 90 days, 30 days, week. And what we realize is often, most of the time, is that goal got too big. The second goal got too big. So then we work it backwards to something that's much more realistic and achievable. So it now becomes something more exciting than the goal they walked in with and more realistic than the goal they just plucked out of the sky because they're feeling all up and excited. And turn that goal into concrete actions that need to have been achieved for you to be 1/3 of the way towards your 10-year goal, 1/10 of the way, 1 year, 1/4 of the way to achieving your 1-year goal. And I just think I think in previous episodes we discussed something along the lines of what fueled my fire, and it was simple visual aids. This is a simple way of setting goals that then turn into actions. And I just think it's a structure and a framework that's very useful. But they are not tattooed on your forehead, these goals.
Where I would agree with you in that story is that your client was a man, and I am going to contradict myself later on. And the man my client that's impressed me this week is a man who did it exactly like that. And goals and force is blokey energy. So it worked for you and your client yesterday. Hooray! But not sold to this woman in pink.
This woman in pink. Well, my word of the week is connection. Because the one thing I got out of yesterday was hanging out with my daughter, client coming down, spending the day and having dinner. Daughter and client had a drink in one part, the middle of it, together. And it was just all a lovely connection. And we went to a beautiful restaurant where I love the waitress, the manager. She always impresses. And I just felt very connected yesterday to my community and very happy to live here. And really enjoyed the whole thing of being out with real people doing real stuff.
How lovely!
And you had your connection with all your last end of term clients call, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So it's another theme of the week.
Yeah, it's funny how those come out, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes.
What's impressed you this week then?
Well, here we go. This is where I'm going to contradict myself. My last client last night at the end of term, so my last client of 2014, is a chap that you met at my summer party, Richard.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to contradict myself because he did something along the lines of what you did with your client yesterday, but Richard did it for himself in reverse, which is that at 1 a.m. the night before, when actually it was too late for me to have a look because I was up to my eyeballs in clients all day, he sent me a PowerPoint presentation summarising his position at the year end with comparisons year on year and a reminder of why and his intentions. Oh, there we go. Actually, so it's all right. Intentions for next year. So he did homework and then some, and he did it in his, I can always adapt myself to my client. So he did it in a way that was meaningful for him. But, the question in this one is always who or what's impressed. And what was impressive about that was that he took time to make a PowerPoint presentation that he wanted to walk me through in our call. So there was preparation for our call, but also it summarized his successes. It demonstrated his ongoing enthusiasm. He doesn't even require accountability or focus. He turns up and he just wants to pick my brains, which is my very favourite sort of client, actually. But I was impressed by Richard's PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, I'm thinking I might have to do a PowerPoint presentation for my 5 questions I was talking about. Was it last week?
Well, yeah, there you go.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? No, I can just imagine your consternation at being presented with a PowerPoint presentation.
Well, I had to send an email saying, I'm so sorry, I haven't got time to look at this today. I've got clients back to back, but I'm looking forward to you talking me through it at 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, and my client who turned up for the day actually sent me a 4-page document of densely typed text which summarised everything, but luckily he put a summary sheet on the front of it, and then I lost him for an hour and a half, so I had time to read it.
Yes, I certainly don't mind people sending stuff in advance. I don't need it, but if it's helpful for them, and it clearly was, and funnily enough, what Richard discovered during the course of his calls was that I'd already done it for myself. I'd done my own version of that. It's certainly, mine was a spreadsheet, you won't be surprised to hear, and his was a PowerPoint presentation. But I think he was quite shocked that, you've already done this yourself. Yes, I have, and here's what I learned. And so I was able to show him something that he missed out, and I could hear him going, "Ooh."
Well, I was impressed by my little town yesterday because, we were galloping about it in various venues, and we ended up renting a room, because I couldn't get anything in Brighton, at the Base Point Business Centre in Shoreham.
I thought you might be at Rope Tackle. I'm always quite fond of Rope Tackle. When you said you'd got a room, I thought, I wonder where they are.
Getting a room as well. I think my local pubs all now, because I was running about looking for my client, think that I've got a whole different business model going on. Entirely. At lunchtime as well, outrageous. Now that would be very naughty, wouldn't it? Getting a room at lunchtime.
Well, there's the going to the pictures in the afternoon, and there's something else altogether in the afternoon.
Yeah. Well, you'll be glad to know that the Base Point Business Centre is Rope Tackle. So there's Rope Tackle Rope Tackle Art Centre underneath, and it used to be the whole building was called Rope Tackle. They're up in arms about it on the Facebook group, by the way, the Shoreham by Sea Facebook group. They hate the fact they've changed the name to Base Point of the bit above. I actually think it's one of those things that is not worth wasting a breath over. But I met the Base Point Business Centre ladies at a chamber do, and I was very impressed with them. I liked them a lot. I looked up the Business Centre website and found out that the whole Base Point company is quite interesting. It's a bit like a mini Regis, but they're not so corporate. They are really making an effort to get involved in their local town. So, for example, the Base Point Southampton Centre will, all the people who run the centre will be getting involved in a local charity and raising money for that local charity. And the Shoreham one will be doing a local charity here. And they also host free networking events. So the people who rent space in their buildings, because it's one of those places you can rent a desk or you can rent a room or you can rent an office, and they provide all the facilities. They host networking events. There's lovely sort of coffee areas where people can go, and the water cooler area, I suppose you'd call it. And I was really very impressed with it all. And they offered me this room, and it was booked in the morning. And I said to them, look, I really need this chap to be able to get online and do a private presentation at 1 o'clock. And she said, well, I will absolutely guarantee that the people before will be out in time. And we turned up. They were absolutely charming, and the whole place was very modern and clean and businesslike and welcoming. I said to my client at the end of the afternoon, she came in and she gave me the invoice. She said, I said, do you want me to pay that now? She said, no, just call us tomorrow and we'll do it tomorrow. So very trusting. And then I said to my client, how much do you think this cost? And he said, well, I'm very impressed with it all, I must say. And he sort of said 150 quid. And I said, £40. It was £10 an hour.
Okay. Those people in Shoreham don't know how to charge, do they? £2.50 at the printers and £40 for the business centre.
I'm deeply impressed with my little town. And then we popped over to my favourite bar and had a really nice glass of wine. And then we went to Chambers Restaurant, which literally was just over the road again. And it really is a top quality restaurant. And as I say, the manageress just never fails to impress. Her accent is absolutely charming, and they all care so much about the food. It really is amazing. It's almost as good as the Pepper Tree used to be back in Worthing. that takes some saying, really. So I was just very impressed with my little town, and I'm very happy to be living here.
What a nice story.
And that's us done for this week, Judith. So thank you very much for your time. We're getting a little bit longer as we go, but I don't think we can cut anything out. I think it was all perfect this week.
Cool.
Speak to you soon.
See you. Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.